The gentleman from Texas, Representative Self.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to explore, you have painted a picture of basically Burma being fractured. I want to explore the idea that are they becoming a client state of China? For a couple of reasons, the Belt and Road initiatives and the Kyaukphyu Deepwater Port and the China-Myanmar pipelines. Because it looks to me as though this gives a strategic advantage to China by allowing them to bypass the Strait of Malacca. So first of all, let's start with that. Ambassador?
Yes, sir. China sees Burma as their gateway to the Indian Ocean. This has been a plan that has been in place for some time now. Kyaukphyu is existential for China. That port and those pipelines are critical infrastructure for them. They will do whatever it takes to preserve those, and they are doing whatever it takes right now to preserve their access and for precisely the reasons that you state. The biggest threat to that right now is the ascent of the Arakan army in Rakhine State, where Kyaukphyu is located. And so one of the reasons that the Chinese have become more of a decisive enabler of the regime's war and are trying to shut down some of the problems in other areas of the country are to allow the Burma army to target its resources on the areas that are most critical to China. And right now you have Chinese armed forces, police and armed forces operating inside Burmese territory to protect critical infrastructure for the Chinese. This is unprecedented in the history of Burma. As Steve said, as Mr. Ross said, the Burma military hates the Chinese because they have a long history of enmity. But the fact that Min Aung Hlaing has allowed China to become so influential in that country is a sign of his desperation and weakness, but China is fully taking advantage of all of it. And this, if you go back to 2010, and 2007 or 2007 and 2008, when the regime started to experiment with openness, the reason they did that was because they were becoming too dependent on China for their own comfort. That was a key driver of the 2010 elections and the openness and the freeing of Aung San Suu Kyi and all of those things that happened after 2007. They are now so desperate to hold on to power, Min Aung Hlaing specifically, but also the senior people around him, that they have allowed China to come in a way that they have never done before.
Mr. Ross?
Yeah, I agree with Ambassador Currie. I think that what China has pursued in Myanmar is enough stability such that it can advance its geostrategic and economic interests through these mega infrastructure projects, but not so much stability that it can't wield leverage over all stakeholders involved. And right now it has a lot of leverage over both the regime and of the ethnic armed groups that are operating on the China-Myanmar border. It's positioned itself extremely well and at great risk to U.S. interests.
So I see that South Korea, India, Myanmar, of course, and China are all involved in the pipeline project. Is there a leverage there by the U.S. on particularly the South Korea and India companies? Ambassador?
Yes, sir. POSCO, which is the South Korean company, we have quietly tried to shut this down and have engaged with the South Koreans about this problem and tried to get them to withdraw. I think they've reduced their footprint in Burma substantially since 2021, but they continue to provide critical support. Other countries that are our allies in the region also continue to provide participate in the legal economy in Burma and provide meaningful support to the regime through that. India is a major one. India has tried to play the China game of playing both sides. They're just not flexible enough to do it and don't have the strategic depth that China does to pull it off. But the answer there right now, the short term, is to encourage India to try to diversify their relationships and not be solely dependent on the regime for engaging in Burma and protecting their security interests, which they do have genuine security problems coming out of Burma. Thank you.
It looks to me like if we could put pressure on the South Korea and India, for instance, because they provide legitimate cover for China in Burma in the pipeline. So if we could remove all other international presence, I think it would make it more directly apparent that this is a strategic defense move. With that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you very much.